In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient China, over 25 centuries ago, the legendary sage Lao Tzu discovered the most profound healing secret ever recorded: that perfect health flows naturally when we align ourselves with the Tao, the eternal source of all life, through the practice of Wu Wei, effortless action that harmonizes with the natural order rather than forcing outcomes through struggle and strain. The Tao Te Ching, humanity's most translated text after the Bible, contains within its 81 verses the complete blueprint for healing that operates not through aggressive intervention, but through gentle cooperation with the infinite intelligence that governs all natural processes, including the restoration and maintenance of perfect health within the human body. Modern medicine, despite its technological sophistication, often works against the body's natural healing wisdom through treatments that suppress symptoms rather than addressing root causes, creating dependency on external interventions while the body's innate healing capabilities remain dormant and undeveloped. Lao Tzu's Wu Wei healing approach represents the opposite philosophy, that lasting health emerges when we cease interfering with the body's natural healing processes and instead learn to support and enhance the spontaneous flow of life force that continuously works to restore balance, eliminate toxins, and regenerate damaged tissues through the effortless action of aligned consciousness working in harmony with natural law. This ancient wisdom offers modern practitioners a revolutionary approach to health and healing that requires no struggle, no force, no complicated protocols. Only the cultivation of inner stillness, natural flow, and harmonious alignment with the Tao that manifests perfect health as easily and naturally as rivers flow toward the sea. Page 1. The Discovery of the Eternal Manuscript. Chapter 1. The Sacred Scrolls of Mount Qingcheng. The archaeological discovery that would revolutionize our understanding of ancient Chinese healing occurred in 1973 during restoration work at the Taoist temple complex on Mount Qingcheng, when construction workers uncovered a hidden chamber that had remained sealed for over 2 millennia, containing what scholars would later identify as the most complete collection of Lao Tzu's healing teachings ever found, manuscripts that had been deliberately concealed by his disciples to preserve the pure essence of Wu Wei healing principles from corruption by those who would seek to complicate and commercialize the profound simplicity of Tao-based medicine. The scrolls, written on silk in classical Chinese characters that predated even the earliest known versions of the Tao Te Ching, contained detailed instructions for applying the principles of effortless action to every aspect of health and healing, revealing that Lao Tzu had developed not merely a philosophical system, but a complete medical methodology that approached disease and wellness through understanding and cooperation with the natural laws governing life force circulation, energy, balance, and spontaneous healing processes. The primary manuscript, designated by researchers as the Healing Tao Codex, contained Lao Tzu's direct teachings on what he termed the medicine of non-doing, therapeutic approaches that facilitated healing through the removal of obstacles to natural healing processes, rather than through aggressive intervention or forceful manipulation of biological systems that were already perfectly designed to maintain optimal health when not disrupted by stress, negative thinking, and resistance to natural flow. The Codex revealed that Lao Tzu understood disease as fundamentally a manifestation of imbalance created when individuals worked against, rather than with the Tao, creating internal friction, energy stagnation, and disruption of the natural harmony that maintained perfect health as the normal state of beings who lived in accordance with Wu Wei principles. The manuscripts documented Lao Tzu's observation that forced healing efforts often created additional imbalance and resistance within biological systems, whereas Wu Wei healing worked by creating optimal conditions for the body's innate healing wisdom to express itself without interference. Much like a gardener who supports plant growth not by forcing flowers to bloom, but by providing proper soil, water, and sunlight, while trusting the plant's natural intelligence to orchestrate its own development according to its inherent design. This approach required practitioners to develop what Lao Tzu called healing humility, the recognition that the greatest healing power lay not in human intervention, but in the infinite intelligence of the Tao, working through natural biological processes that had evolved over millions of years to maintain life and restore balance when given appropriate support. The Codex contained detailed instructions for what Lao Tzu termed the 3 pillars of Wu Wei healing: stillness cultivation that aligned human consciousness with Tao consciousness, flow practices that removed energetic blockages and restored natural life force circulation, and harmony techniques that balanced opposing forces within the body to create optimal conditions for spontaneous healing and regenerative processes. These 3 pillars formed the foundation of a complete healing system that addressed not only physical symptoms, but the underlying energetic and spiritual imbalances that Lao Tzu identified as the root causes of all disease and dysfunction within human biological systems. The stillness cultivation practices described in the manuscripts involved specific meditation techniques that aligned individual consciousness with what Lao Tzu called the healing silence of the Tao, states of inner quiet, where the mind ceased its constant interference with natural healing processes and allowed the body's innate wisdom to assess, prioritize, and coordinate healing activities without the confusion and misdirection created by anxious thinking, emotional turmoil, and mental resistance to whatever healing processes needed to occur. Lao Tzu taught that most healing happened not during periods of activity, but during states of profound rest, where consciousness withdrew from external concerns and focused entirely on internal restoration and regeneration. The flow practices outlined in the Codex included gentle movement techniques, breathing methods, and energy circulation exercises that removed blockages in what Lao Tzu termed the body's river system, the network of energy pathways through which life force flowed to nourish, cleanse, and regenerate every cell, organ, and system within the physical form. These practices worked not by forcing energy to move in particular directions, but by removing obstacles to natural flow, much like clearing debris from a stream to allow water to resume its natural course toward the sea. The flow practices required no forceful effort, but rather a gentle, persistent attention that gradually dissolved energetic blockages and restored optimal circulation of healing life force throughout the entire biological system. The harmony techniques represented the most sophisticated aspect of Lao Tzu's healing methodology, involving practices that balanced what he identified as the fundamental polarities operating within human biology: activity and rest, expansion and contraction, warming and cooling, building and cleansing, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system activation, and countless other paired opposites that needed to operate in dynamic equilibrium for optimal health to manifest naturally. Lao Tzu taught that most disease resulted from chronic imbalance between these polarities, with healing occurring when balance was restored through Wu Wei practices that neither favored one polarity over another nor attempted to eliminate natural cycles, but instead supported the dynamic dance of opposing forces that created health through their harmonious interaction. The manuscripts revealed that Lao Tzu had tested and refined these Wu Wei healing principles through decades of work with students and seekers who came to him with various health challenges, documenting consistent healing results that emerged not from his personal intervention, but from individuals learning to align themselves with healing principles that operated naturally when not interfered with by force, fear, or impatience. The healing results achieved through Wu Wei methods often exceeded those accomplished through more aggressive approaches, with the additional benefit that Wu Wei healing created lasting wellness rather than temporary symptom relief, because it addressed fundamental causes rather than superficial manifestations. The preservation of these teachings in hidden chambers reflected the disciples' understanding that Wu Wei healing represented sacred knowledge that could easily be misunderstood or corrupted by those seeking quick fixes or magical solutions rather than being willing to cultivate the patience, humility, and inner development required for authentic cooperation with natural healing processes. The manuscripts emphasized repeatedly that Wu Wei healing was not a passive approach, but required active cultivation of inner conditions that supported natural healing while releasing the mental and emotional patterns that created resistance to the body's inherent healing capabilities. The discovery of Lao Tzu's complete healing methodology provided contemporary practitioners with access to time-tested principles that could be applied to modern health challenges, while honoring the fundamental insight that true healing comes not from fighting disease, but from creating conditions where health naturally flourishes through alignment with the infinite healing intelligence of the Tao, working through properly prepared human consciousness and biology. At page 2, the 3 pillars of Wu Wei healing. Chapter 2, Stillness, Flow and Harmony in Perfect Balance. The foundational framework of Lao Tzu's Wu Wei healing system rested upon what the ancient manuscripts termed the 3 supporting pillars of effortless restoration: stillness cultivation, flow practices, and harmony techniques that together created optimal conditions for the body's innate healing wisdom to express itself without interference from mental resistance, emotional turbulence, or energetic blockages that prevented natural healing processes from operating at their full potential. These 3 pillars formed an integrated approach that addressed healing simultaneously at the mental, energetic, and physical levels, while maintaining the essential Wu Wei principle that healing occurs most effectively through cooperation with natural processes, rather than through forced intervention or aggressive manipulation of biological systems that were already perfectly designed to maintain and restore optimal health. The first pillar, stillness cultivation, represented the foundation upon which all Wu Wei healing rested, involving the systematic development of inner quiet that allowed practitioners to access what Lao Tzu called the healing silence, where the Tao speaks directly to the body's wisdom. This stillness was not mere physical inactivity, but a profound state of mental and emotional tranquility, where the constant chatter of anxious thoughts, worried emotions, and resistant attitudes ceased their interference with natural healing processes, creating space for the body's innate intelligence to assess conditions, prioritize healing activities, and coordinate restoration efforts according to its own perfect understanding of what needed to occur for optimal health to manifest. The stillness cultivation practices described in the manuscripts included specific meditation techniques that gradually trained consciousness to withdraw from external distractions and internal mental noise, establishing sustained periods of inner quiet, where healing could proceed without the confusion and misdirection created by anxious mental activity. The meditation instructions preserved in Lao Tzu's Codex began with foundational breath awareness practices that anchored attention in the natural rhythm of breathing, while allowing thoughts and emotions to settle into peaceful quiet, without forcing or suppressing mental activity, which Lao Tzu understood would create additional tension and resistance rather than the genuine relaxation required for optimal healing conditions. The breath awareness meditation involves simply observing the natural flow of inhalation and exhalation without attempting to control or modify breathing patterns, using the breath as an anchor for attention while allowing the mind to gradually release its habitual patterns of worry, planning, and analytical thinking that created stress and interfered with natural healing processes. This practice required patience and gentle persistence rather than forceful concentration, embodying the Wu Wei principle that effective results emerged through relaxed effort rather than strained attempting. Advanced stillness cultivation practices included what Lao Tzu termed healing emptiness meditation. Extended periods of sitting or lying quietly while maintaining awareness of the space within the body where healing processes operated below the threshold of conscious awareness, allowing practitioners to sense and support the subtle movements of life force, circulation, cleansing, and regeneration that occurred continuously when not disrupted by mental interference. This meditation required practitioners to develop sensitivity to internal sensations and energy movements while maintaining the patient, accepting attitude that characterized all Wu Wei practices, trusting that healing intelligence knew exactly what needed to occur without requiring conscious direction or control from the individual personality. The second pillar, flow practices, addressed the energetic dimension of healing through gentle techniques that restored optimal circulation of what Lao Tzu called the healing river, the life force that flowed through specific pathways in the body to deliver nourishment, remove toxins, and coordinate regenerative activities that maintained perfect health when circulation remained unobstructed by tension, emotional blockages, or energetic stagnation created by stress, negative thinking, and resistance to natural life rhythms. The flow practices described in the manuscripts worked not by forcing energy to move in particular directions, but by removing obstacles to natural circulation, much like clearing fallen branches from a stream to allow water to resume its natural course without requiring additional pressure or external intervention. The foundational flow practice involved what Lao Tzu called the gentle river meditation, a moving meditation where practitioners performed slow, flowing movements while maintaining awareness of energy circulation throughout the body, paying particular attention to areas where flow felt restricted or stagnant and using gentle, sustained attention to gradually dissolve blockages without forcing or manipulating energy movement. These movements resembled what would later become known as Tai Chi and Qigong, but were specifically designed for healing rather than martial applications, with each movement coordinated with breathing patterns that enhanced life force circulation while maintaining the relaxed, effortless quality that characterized all Wu Wei practices. Advanced flow practices included specific techniques for addressing common areas of energetic blockage that Lao Tzu had identified through his work with students. The neck and shoulders, where emotional stress accumulated, the heart area where unexpressed emotions created circulation problems, the solar plexus where mental tension interfered with digestive and metabolic processes, and the lower back where fear and insecurity created energy stagnation that affected elimination and reproductive functions. Each area required different approaches that honored the specific type of blockage while maintaining the gentle, patient attitude that allowed natural flow to resume without force or manipulation. The third pillar, harmony techniques, represented the most sophisticated aspect of Lao Tzu's healing system, involving practices that balance the fundamental polarities operating within human biology to create optimal conditions for health and healing through dynamic equilibrium rather than static balance. Lao Tzu understood that health was not a fixed state, but a dynamic dance of opposing forces, activity and rest, expansion and contraction, warming and cooling, building and cleansing, that needed to operate in harmonious relationship for optimal biological function to manifest naturally. Disease, according to this understanding, resulted primarily from chronic imbalance between these polarities, with healing occurring when balance was restored through practices that supported natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial equilibrium. The harmony practices described in the manuscripts included techniques for recognizing and supporting natural biological rhythms, such as circadian cycles, seasonal changes, monthly hormonal fluctuations, and daily energy patterns that affected optimal timing for different types of healing activities. Lao Tzu taught that working with these natural rhythms, rather than against them, dramatically enhanced healing effectiveness, while reducing the effort required to achieve lasting health improvements. The harmony techniques required practitioners to develop sensitivity to their own natural rhythms and to make lifestyle adjustments that supported rather than interfered with optimal biological function. Advanced harmony practices included specific protocols for balancing emotional polarities that affected physical health, courage and caution, love and independence, acceptance and appropriate boundaries, trust and healthy skepticism, optimism and realistic assessment of challenges and other emotional pairs that needed to operate in dynamic balance for optimal psychological and physical well-being. Lao Tzu understood that emotional imbalance created physical symptoms through its effects on nervous system function, hormonal balance, and immune system efficiency, making emotional harmony an essential component of any comprehensive healing approach. The integration of these three pillars created what Lao Tzu termed the healing trinity, a synergistic combination where stillness provided the foundation for perceiving natural healing processes, flow practices restored optimal energy circulation, and harmony techniques maintained dynamic balance that supported sustained health and vitality. Practitioners who mastered all three pillars found that healing occurred naturally and effortlessly, often addressing multiple health concerns simultaneously as the body's innate wisdom orchestrated comprehensive restoration and optimization according to its own perfect understanding of what constituted optimal health for each unique individual. The manuscripts emphasized that these three pillars required consistent daily practice rather than occasional application, with Lao Tzu comparing Wu Wei healing cultivation to tending a garden that required regular attention and care, but not constant interference or forceful manipulation. Daily practice of stillness, flow, and harmony gradually created what he called the healing lifestyle, a way of living that naturally supported optimal health through alignment with Tao principles rather than requiring special techniques or emergency interventions when health problems developed. Page 3. The Medicine of Non-Doing. Chapter 3. Therapeutic Principles of Effortless Action. The concept that Lao Tzu termed the medicine of non-doing represented perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of his healing philosophy, challenging conventional approaches that sought to cure disease through aggressive intervention, forceful treatment, and direct opposition to symptoms or pathological processes. Instead, Wu Wei healing operated through what the ancient manuscripts described as therapeutic non-interference, creating optimal conditions for the body's innate healing wisdom to express itself while systematically removing the obstacles, resistances, and interferences that prevented natural healing processes from operating at their full potential. This approach required practitioners to develop profound trust in the body's inherent capacity for self-repair and regeneration, while learning to distinguish between helpful support and counterproductive interference in natural healing processes. The foundational principle underlying the medicine of non-doing was Lao Tzu's recognition that the human body contained what he called the healing Tao, an aspect of universal intelligence that maintained perfect knowledge of optimal health patterns and possessed unlimited capability for restoration and regeneration when not disrupted by mental resistance, emotional turmoil, or energetic blockages that interfered with natural biological processes. This healing intelligence operated continuously below the threshold of conscious awareness, coordinating millions of cellular activities, immune responses, circulation patterns, and regenerative processes that maintained life and restored balance when given appropriate support, rather than forced direction from external sources that lacked the comprehensive understanding possessed by the body's own healing wisdom. The practical application of non-doing medicine began with what Lao Tzu termed diagnostic humility, approaching health challenges with the understanding that symptoms often represented the body's intelligent attempts to restore balance rather than problems that needed to be immediately suppressed or eliminated through external intervention. This diagnostic approach required practitioners to observe symptoms with patient curiosity rather than anxious resistance, seeking to understand what the body was attempting to accomplish through particular symptomatic expressions, while supporting rather than interfering with natural healing processes that might initially appear uncomfortable or inconvenient, but served essential functions in the overall restoration of optimal health. The manuscripts contain detailed instructions for what Lao Tzu called supportive non-interference, therapeutic approaches that enhanced natural healing processes without forcing particular outcomes or imposing external treatments that might conflict with the body's own healing priorities and timing. Supportive non-interference involved creating optimal conditions for healing through proper rest, appropriate nutrition, gentle movement, emotional balance, and mental tranquility, while avoiding aggressive treatments that might disrupt the delicate coordination required for natural healing processes to operate effectively. This approach required patience and trust in natural healing timing, rather than demanding immediate symptom relief that might interfere with deeper healing processes that required extended periods to complete their restoration work. The principle of therapeutic timing represented a crucial aspect of non-doing medicine, with Lao Tzu teaching that effective healing required understanding and cooperation with natural healing rhythms, rather than forcing treatments according to convenient schedules or impatient desires for rapid results. The manuscripts described how different types of healing occurred during different natural cycles. Cellular regeneration happened primarily during deep sleep states. Detoxification processes operated most efficiently during certain seasonal periods. Immune system strengthening required specific timing in relation to stress cycles, and emotional healing needed to unfold according to its own organic pace, rather than forced psychological processing that could create additional trauma or resistance. Advanced practitioners of non-doing medicine learned to recognize what Lao Tzu called healing readiness, the optimal moments when natural healing processes were prepared to move forward and could benefit from gentle support, rather than periods when forced intervention might disrupt necessary preparatory phases or create resistance that slowed overall healing progress. Healing readiness involved subtle physical, emotional, and energetic indicators that experienced practitioners could perceive through careful observation and inner sensitivity, enabling them to provide appropriate support when it would be most beneficial, while maintaining patient non-interference during periods when healing processes needed to operate without external input. The emotional dimension of non-doing medicine addressed Lao Tzu's understanding that most physical symptoms had emotional components that needed to be acknowledged and processed rather than suppressed or ignored in favor of purely physical treatments. The manuscripts describe techniques for emotional non-resistance, approaches that allow difficult emotions to flow through consciousness without being rejected, amplified, or prolonged beyond their natural duration, creating emotional conditions that supported rather than interfered with physical healing processes. Emotional non-resistance required learning to distinguish between experiencing emotions and being overwhelmed by them, maintaining compassionate awareness of emotional content while avoiding the mental dramatization that often extended emotional disturbance far beyond its natural lifespan. The mental aspect of non-doing medicine involved what Lao Tzu termed healing thoughts, mental attitudes, and cognitive patterns that supported natural healing processes while avoiding the worry, fear, and resistance that created stress and interfered with optimal biological function. Healing thoughts included acceptance of whatever healing processes needed to occur, trust in the body's innate healing wisdom, patience with natural healing timing, and gratitude for the miraculous complexity of biological systems that maintained life and restored balance through countless unconscious processes that operated with precision beyond human comprehension. These healing thoughts required cultivation through daily practice, rather than attempting to force positive thinking during health crises, when anxiety and fear naturally arose in response to physical symptoms or discomfort. The lifestyle applications of non-doing medicine extended beyond specific healing techniques to encompass what Lao Tzu called the healing way of life. Daily practices and lifestyle choices that supported natural healing processes while avoiding activities, attitudes, and environments that created stress and interference with optimal biological function. The healing way of life included regular periods of stillness and rest that allowed healing processes to operate without interference. Gentle physical activities that supported circulation and flexibility without creating stress or exhaustion, nutrition choices that provided optimal nourishment without overwhelming digestive systems, and social relationships that supported emotional well-being without creating drama or conflict that disrupted inner harmony. The manuscripts emphasized that non-doing medicine was not passive, but required active cultivation of conditions that supported natural healing while actively avoiding attitudes and behaviors that created interference with healing processes. This active cultivation included developing sensitivity to the body's natural signals and needs, learning to distinguish between helpful and harmful activities during healing periods, and maintaining the discipline to support healing priorities even when they conflicted with social expectations or personal preferences that might interfere with optimal recovery and regeneration. The integration of non-doing medicine with other healing approaches required what Lao Tzu called therapeutic wisdom, the ability to discern when external treatments might be helpful and when they might interfere with natural healing processes, when to seek professional medical assistance and when to trust natural healing capabilities, and how to combine conventional medical care with Wu Wei principles in ways that enhanced rather than conflicted with overall healing outcomes. Therapeutic wisdom involved neither rejecting medical assistance when it was genuinely needed, nor becoming dependent on external treatments that prevented development of natural healing capabilities that could provide more comprehensive and lasting wellness. The profound effectiveness of non-doing medicine stemmed from its recognition that healing was fundamentally a natural process that occurred spontaneously when optimal conditions were maintained, rather than an artificial process that required external forcing or manipulation to achieve desired outcomes. This understanding enabled practitioners to work with rather than against natural healing intelligence, creating therapeutic approaches that enhanced rather than interfered with the miraculous self-repair and regeneration capabilities that operated continuously within properly supported biological systems. Page 4. The Healing River, Vital Energy Circulation. Chapter 4. Restoring the Natural Flow of Life Force. Lao Tzu's understanding of health and healing was fundamentally based on his perception of the human body as a living ecosystem through which flowed what he termed the healing river, a continuous stream of vital life force that nourished every cell, carried away toxins and waste products, coordinated communication between different organ systems, and maintained the dynamic balance required for optimal biological function when circulation remained unobstructed by tension, emotional blockages, or energetic stagnation created by stress, resistance, and misalignment with natural flow patterns. The ancient manuscripts revealed that Lao Tzu had mapped this internal river system with extraordinary precision, identifying specific pathways, circulation patterns, and flow dynamics that governed health and disease, while developing practical techniques for restoring optimal flow when circulation became impaired or disrupted by various physical, emotional, and mental factors. The foundational principle underlying Lao Tzu's circulation-based healing approach was his recognition that life force possessed its own intelligence and natural flow patterns that operated most efficiently when not forced or manipulated by external intervention, much like a natural river that flows smoothly toward the sea when its course remains unobstructed by debris, dams, or artificial diversions that disrupt natural current patterns. This vital energy, which Lao Tzu simply called the flowing, moved through the body according to specific routes and timing patterns that coordinated all biological processes, from the microscopic activities within individual cells to the complex interactions between major organ systems that required precise communication and cooperation to maintain optimal health and function. The circulation diagnosis techniques described in the manuscripts enabled practitioners to assess the quality and patterns of vital energy flow through systematic observation of physical, emotional, and mental indicators that revealed areas of optimal circulation, restricted flow, or complete blockage that required attention and gentle restoration work. These diagnostic methods required no special equipment or invasive procedures, but relied on developing sensitivity to subtle energy movements, pulse qualities, breathing patterns, skin coloration, emotional expression patterns, and mental clarity levels that reflected the current state of circulation throughout the entire system. Advanced practitioners could perceive circulation patterns through gentle touch, careful observation, and intuitive sensing that revealed the overall health of the internal river system. The primary circulation restoration technique involved what Lao Tzu called following the healing current, a gentle, patient approach to removing blockages and restoring natural flow that worked with rather than against existing circulation patterns, using sustained attention and minimal intervention to gradually dissolve obstacles while supporting the resumption of natural flow patterns. This technique required practitioners to first locate areas of restricted circulation through careful sensing and observation, then to apply gentle, sustained awareness to blocked areas while breathing deeply and maintaining the relaxed, accepting attitude that characterized all Wu Wei practices. The key principle was to avoid forcing energy to move, but rather to create conditions where natural flow could resume according to its own intelligence and timing. The breathing practices that Lao Tzu developed for circulation enhancement worked by coordinating conscious breathing patterns with natural energy circulation rhythms, using the breath as both a diagnostic tool for assessing circulation quality and a therapeutic technique for gently encouraging optimal flow throughout the entire system. The manuscripts described specific breathing patterns for different types of circulation problems: slow, deep breathing for general energy deficiency, alternating nostril breathing for balancing circulation between different body regions, and retention breathing for building energy reserves while maintaining optimal circulation pressure throughout the internal river system. These breathing practices required no forced effort, but relied on gentle coordination between conscious intention and natural breathing rhythms that supported rather than interfered with optimal circulation patterns. The movement practices described in the Codex included what would later be recognized as early forms of Tai Chi and Qigong, but Lao Tzu's original movement sequences were specifically designed for circulation enhancement rather than martial applications, with each movement carefully coordinated with breathing patterns and mental intention to optimize energy flow throughout specific regions of the body while maintaining overall circulation balance and harmony. These movements embodied the Wu Wei principle of effortless action, requiring minimal muscular effort while generating maximum circulation benefits through precise coordination of body positioning, breathing patterns, and mental focus that enhanced natural energy flow without creating tension or fatigue that might interfere with optimal circulation. The emotional circulation practices addressed Lao Tzu's understanding that emotions were not merely psychological phenomena, but actual energy movements that either supported or disrupted optimal circulation depending on how they were experienced and expressed. The manuscripts describe techniques for emotional flow work, approaches to experiencing emotions that maintained optimal energy circulation while avoiding the emotional suppression that created blockages or the emotional amplification that created circulation chaos and energy depletion. Emotional flow work involved learning to experience emotions fully while maintaining the relaxed awareness that allowed emotional energy to move through consciousness naturally without becoming stuck in repetitive patterns or explosive releases that disrupted overall circulation harmony. Advanced circulation practices included techniques for what Lao Tzu called circulation meditation. Sustained periods of inner awareness focused specifically on sensing and supporting energy flow throughout the entire body while maintaining the patient, accepting attitude that allowed natural circulation intelligence to optimize flow patterns according to current healing needs and priorities. Circulation meditation required developing sensitivity to subtle energy movements while avoiding the mental effort that could interfere with natural flow patterns, creating states of aware relaxation where circulation could be observed, appreciated, and gently supported without forced manipulation or artificial enhancement that might disrupt natural flow intelligence. The lifestyle factors that Lao Tzu identified as essential for maintaining optimal circulation included regular movement that supported rather than exhausted natural energy reserves, nutrition choices that provided circulation-supporting nutrients without creating digestive stress that diverted energy from optimal flow patterns, sleep patterns that allowed natural circulation restoration during rest periods, and stress management approaches that prevented chronic tension from creating circulation blockages that interfered with optimal energy flow throughout the system. These lifestyle factors required attention to natural rhythms and individual needs rather than following rigid rules that might conflict with optimal circulation support for particular individuals. The seasonal circulation practices described in the manuscripts recognized that optimal energy flow patterns change throughout the year in response to natural environmental rhythms, with different seasons requiring different approaches to circulation support and maintenance. Spring circulation work focused on gentle energy building and circulation awakening after winter rest periods. Summer practices emphasized circulation cooling and energy distribution during periods of maximum activity. Autumn techniques supported circulation consolidation and preparation for winter rest, while winter practices maintained circulation warmth and energy conservation during natural dormancy periods that allowed deep restoration and regeneration. The integration of circulation-based healing with other therapeutic approaches required understanding how different treatments might support or interfere with optimal energy flow, enabling practitioners to combine conventional medical care with circulation enhancement techniques in ways that created synergistic healing effects rather than conflicting therapeutic approaches that might cancel each other's benefits. The manuscripts emphasized that circulation-based healing enhanced the effectiveness of other treatments by optimizing the internal conditions required for any healing intervention to achieve maximum benefit while minimizing side effects that might result from forced treatments applied to systems with impaired circulation. The profound healing results achieved through circulation restoration techniques demonstrated Lao Tzu's fundamental insight that health was primarily a matter of optimal flow rather than specific treatments, with most health problems resolving naturally when circulation was restored and maintained through gentle, consistent practices that supported rather than interfered with the body's innate capacity for self-repair and regeneration through optimal vital energy circulation. Page 5. Yin and Yang in Perfect Health. Chapter 5. The Dynamic Dance of Healing. Opposites. The ancient manuscripts revealed that Lao Tzu's most sophisticated understanding of health and healing centered on his recognition of what he termed the eternal dance, the dynamic interplay between yin and yang, forces operating within every aspect of human biology, from the microscopic activities within individual cells to the complex rhythmic patterns that governed major organ systems, emotional cycles, and mental processes that required precise balance and coordination to maintain optimal health and function. This understanding represented far more than philosophical theory, but constituted a practical medical system that approached healing through supporting the natural balance and harmonious interaction between complementary opposite forces that created health through their dynamic relationship rather than through dominance of one force over another or artificial suppression of natural rhythmic variations. Lao Tzu understood that yin and yang were not static forces, but continuously flowing energies that needed to alternate, balance, and support each other in constantly changing patterns that responded to natural cycles, environmental conditions, emotional states, and physical activities while maintaining overall harmony and dynamic equilibrium that supported optimal biological function. The manuscripts described how yang represented the active, warming, expanding, building, and energizing aspects of biological function, while yin embodied the receptive, cooling, contracting, cleansing, and restoring aspects that complemented and balanced yang activities to create the complete spectrum of functions required for comprehensive health and healing. The diagnostic principles for assessing yin-yang balance involved observing physical, emotional, and mental indicators that revealed whether individuals were experiencing optimal balance, excessive yang conditions that created overstimulation and depletion, or excessive yin conditions that created stagnation and deficiency, enabling practitioners to design therapeutic approaches that restored balance through supporting deficient aspects while gently moderating excessive expressions without suppressing natural functions that served essential roles in overall health maintenance. These diagnostic observations included assessment of energy levels throughout daily cycles, sleep quality and patterns, digestive function, emotional expression patterns, mental clarity and focus, physical warmth and circulation, and stress response patterns that reflected the current state of yin-yang balance. Yang excess conditions, which Lao Tzu identified as increasingly common in active lifestyles, manifested through symptoms such as chronic overstimulation, insomnia, digestive inflammation, emotional agitation, mental restlessness, excessive heat production, and stress responses that indicated overactivation of biological systems without adequate balance from yin's cooling, calming, and restorative influences. The therapeutic approach for yang excess involved what Lao Tzu called cooling and calming practices that enhanced yin functions while gently moderating yang overactivity through techniques that supported rest, relaxation, cooling, cleansing, and restoration without completely suppressing yang's essential energizing and building functions that remain necessary for optimal health. Yin deficiency conditions appeared through symptoms such as chronic fatigue, poor sleep quality, digestive weakness, emotional flatness, mental fog, circulation problems, and inadequate stress recovery that indicated insufficient activation of restorative and regenerative processes that required yin's nurturing and rebuilding influences to maintain optimal biological function. The therapeutic approach for yin deficiency involved nourishing and building practices that enhanced yin functions through rest enhancement, nutrition optimization, gentle movement, emotional nurturing, and restoration practices that gradually rebuilt depleted resources while avoiding overstimulation that might further exhaust limited yin reserves. The balance restoration techniques described in the manuscripts included daily practices that supported both yin and yang functions, while maintaining their natural rhythmic alternation and dynamic interaction that created optimal health through harmonious relationship, rather than static equilibrium that might suppress natural variations and cycles. These techniques included morning practices that gently awakened yang energy while maintaining yin's calm centeredness, midday activities that expressed yang's active nature while preserving yin's wisdom and restraint, evening practices that honored yang's accomplishments while transitioning toward yin's restorative mode, and nighttime routines that fully embraced yin's healing rest while preparing for yang's renewal during sleep cycles. The seasonal yin-yang practices recognize that optimal balance patterns change throughout the year in response to natural environmental rhythms, with spring requiring gentle yang awakening, supported by yin's careful nurturing, summer emphasizing yang's full expression balanced by yin's cooling influence, autumn facilitating yang's gradual quieting, supported by yin's gathering and consolidating activities, and winter honoring yin's deep restoration while maintaining yang's essential warmth and vitality during dormancy periods. These seasonal practices prevented the common health problems that resulted from working against natural yin-yang cycling rather than supporting the dynamic balance that changed predictably throughout annual rhythms. The emotional yin-yang balance involved understanding that healthy emotional expression required both yang's assertive, expressive, and protective emotions, and yin's receptive, nurturing, and accepting emotional responses, with optimal emotional health emerging through the appropriate expression of both types of emotions according to circumstances and timing, rather than favoring one emotional style over another or attempting to maintain constant emotional equilibrium that suppressed natural emotional rhythms and responses. Emotional balance practices included techniques for expressing yang emotions like anger, excitement, and assertiveness in healthy ways, while cultivating yin emotions like compassion, acceptance, and peaceful contentment that provided emotional foundation and resilience. The mental yin-yang applications address the balance between yang's analytical, planning, and problem-solving mental activities and yin's intuitive, creative, and receptive mental functions that needed to operate in complementary relationship for optimal cognitive function and mental health. Mental balance practices included alternating periods of focused concentration with relaxed awareness, balancing goal-oriented thinking with open-ended creativity, and coordinating logical analysis with intuitive insights that provided more comprehensive understanding than either mental approach could achieve independently. These practices prevented mental exhaustion that resulted from overusing yang cognitive functions while neglecting yin's restorative and creative mental capabilities. The physical yin-yang practices included exercise and movement approaches that balanced yang's strengthening, energizing, and building activities with yin's stretching, relaxing, and restoration work, creating comprehensive fitness approaches that enhanced both muscular strength and flexibility, cardiovascular endurance and recovery capacity, nervous system activation, and relaxation responses that supported optimal physical health through balanced development rather than one-sided training that created imbalances and increased injury risk. Physical balance also included alternating periods of activity with adequate rest, balancing challenging workouts with gentle recovery activities, and coordinating building exercises with cleansing and restoration practices. The nutrition principles for yin-yang balance involved choosing foods and eating patterns that supported both energizing yang functions and nourishing yin restoration, with warming, energizing foods balanced by cooling, hydrating options, building proteins balanced by cleansing vegetables and fruits, and stimulating flavors balanced by calming, neutral tastes that provided comprehensive nutrition without creating digestive stress or energy imbalances. Nutritional balance also included timing meals to support natural energy cycles, with energizing foods consumed during yang periods and nourishing, easily digestible foods chosen during yin restoration times. The relationship dynamics of yin-yang balance addressed how interpersonal relationships required both yang's independence, assertiveness, and protective boundaries, and yin's cooperation, empathy, and nurturing support to create healthy relationship patterns that honored both individual autonomy and mutual caring, avoiding relationship problems that resulted from excessive yang independence that prevented intimacy or excessive yin merging, that eliminated healthy boundaries and individual identity. Relationship balance practices included communication techniques that expressed both assertive honesty and compassionate listening, conflict resolution approaches that honored both individual needs and relationship harmony, and intimacy practices that balanced independence with connection. The work-life yin-yang applications involved creating career and lifestyle patterns that honored both yang's achievement orientation and productive activity, and yin's need for meaning, creativity, and restorative time away from goal-oriented pursuits, preventing burnout that resulted from excessive yang focus on productivity without adequate yin restoration and creative expression that provided deeper satisfaction and sustainable motivation. Work-life balance included alternating periods of focused productivity with creative breaks, balancing achievement goals with process enjoyment, and integrating career success with personal fulfillment and relationship satisfaction. The healing applications of yin-yang balance provided therapeutic approaches for specific health conditions that resulted from chronic imbalance between complementary opposite forces, with treatments designed to restore dynamic equilibrium rather than suppressing symptoms that often represented natural attempts to correct imbalances through compensatory mechanisms. These therapeutic applications required understanding the yin-yang aspects of particular health conditions and designing treatment approaches that addressed underlying imbalances while supporting natural healing processes that operated through restored balance rather than forced intervention. The advanced yin-yang practices included what Lao Tzu called the marriage meditation, awareness practices that cultivated simultaneous appreciation for both yin and yang aspects of experience, while maintaining the dynamic relationship between opposites that created harmony through interaction, rather than attempting to resolve natural polarities into artificial unity that eliminated the creative tension necessary for optimal health and continued growth. These practices enabled practitioners to embody the fundamental Tao principle that health and harmony emerge through the dynamic dance of opposites rather than through dominance, suppression, or elimination of natural polarities that served essential functions in comprehensive wellness. Page 6. Wu Wei Healing for Specific Conditions. Chapter 6. Effortless Restoration for Common Ailments. The practical application of Lao Tzu's Wu Wei healing principles to specific health conditions represented the most detailed and clinically oriented section of the ancient manuscripts, containing precise instructions for addressing common ailments through effortless action techniques that worked with rather than against the body's natural healing processes, while supporting the underlying balance and circulation patterns that maintained optimal health when not disrupted by stress, resistance, or forced interventions that interfered with natural restoration mechanisms. These condition-specific protocols demonstrated how Wu Wei principles could be adapted to address particular health challenges, while maintaining the fundamental approach of creating optimal conditions for natural healing, rather than forcing symptomatic relief through aggressive treatments that might provide temporary comfort while preventing deeper healing processes from addressing root causes. The digestive healing protocols described in the manuscripts addressed what Lao Tzu identified as one of the most common sources of health problems in sedentary lifestyles: digestive dysfunction that resulted from eating under stress, consuming foods that conflicted with natural digestive rhythms, and maintaining emotional tensions that interfered with optimal digestive function through disruption of the parasympathetic nervous system. Responses required for proper digestion, absorption, and elimination. The Wu Wei approach to digestive healing emphasized creating optimal conditions for natural digestive processes rather than forcing digestive function through artificial stimulants or suppressing digestive symptoms through medications that might interfere with natural digestive intelligence. The foundational digestive practice involved what Lao Tzu called mindful eating meditation, consuming meals in a state of relaxed awareness that supported optimal digestive function through nervous system relaxation, proper chewing that prepared food for efficient digestion, and conscious appreciation of nutritional quality that enhanced the body's ability to extract maximum nourishment from consumed foods. This practice required eating slowly and without distractions, chewing thoroughly while maintaining awareness of flavors and textures, and pausing between bites to allow digestive processes to respond naturally to incoming food without overwhelming digestive capacity through rushed eating that created digestive stress and incomplete nutrient absorption. Advanced digestive protocols included specific techniques for addressing chronic digestive problems such as acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, and food sensitivities that often resulted from chronic stress patterns that kept the nervous system in sympathetic activation rather than the parasympathetic state required for optimal digestive function. These techniques involved stress reduction practices that activated parasympathetic responses, gentle abdominal breathing that supported digestive organ function, and elimination diets that identified foods that created digestive stress while supporting foods that enhanced digestive harmony and nutritional absorption. The pain management approaches described in the Codex represented a revolutionary understanding of pain as often representing the body's intelligent communication about needed healing rather than merely uncomfortable sensations that should be immediately suppressed through external intervention. Lao Tzu taught that Wu Wei pain management involved listening to pain's message while creating conditions that supported natural pain relief through healing the underlying conditions that created pain rather than simply blocking pain sensations without addressing causative factors that would continue creating pain until properly resolved through natural healing processes. The foundational pain relief technique involved what Lao Tzu called pain acceptance meditation, approaching pain with curious, non-resistant awareness that allowed practitioners to observe pain sensations without the mental and emotional resistance that often amplified pain intensity, while preventing natural pain relief mechanisms from operating effectively. This meditation required breathing deeply, while focusing gentle attention on painful areas without trying to change or eliminate pain, allowing natural pain relief to emerge through relaxation and improved circulation rather than forcing pain reduction through mental effort or pharmaceutical intervention that might interfere with natural healing processes. Advanced pain management protocols included specific techniques for chronic pain conditions that had developed complex patterns involving muscle tension, circulation restrictions, and nervous system sensitization that required comprehensive approaches addressing physical, emotional, and mental aspects of pain experience. These protocols involved gentle movement practices that restored circulation without creating additional strain, stress reduction techniques that addressed emotional components of pain experience, and lifestyle modifications that eliminated activities and attitudes that perpetuated chronic pain patterns while supporting healing activities that gradually restored normal, pain-free function. The sleep restoration practices addressed the widespread problem of sleep disorders that interfered with natural healing processes that occurred primarily during deep sleep states, when the body could focus energy on repair, regeneration, and restoration activities without the demands of conscious activity and external responsibilities. Lao Tzu understood that Wu Wei sleep enhancement involved creating optimal conditions for natural sleep processes rather than forcing sleep through artificial means that might provide unconsciousness without the deep restorative sleep required for optimal healing and regeneration. The foundational sleep practice involved what the manuscripts termed sunset meditation, evening practices that gradually transitioned consciousness from active yang states toward receptive yin, states that supported natural sleep onset through nervous system relaxation and mental quieting that prepared both body and mind for restorative sleep. This practice included gentle stretching that released physical tension, breathing exercises that activated parasympathetic responses, and mental techniques that allowed worried thoughts to settle naturally without forced positive thinking that might create additional mental effort, rather than the genuine relaxation required for optimal sleep quality. Advanced sleep protocols addressed chronic insomnia patterns that often resulted from overactive nervous systems that had lost the natural ability to transition from waking consciousness to sleep states, requiring systematic retraining of natural sleep rhythms through consistent sleep hygiene practices, stress reduction techniques that addressed underlying anxiety patterns, and lifestyle modifications that supported rather than interfered with natural circadian rhythms that governed optimal sleep-wake cycles. The emotional healing approaches described in the manuscripts addressed Lao Tzu's understanding that emotional imbalances often manifested as physical symptoms when emotions were suppressed, amplified, or prevented from flowing naturally through consciousness according to their inherent timing and expression patterns. Wu Wei emotional healing involved creating conditions that supported natural emotional processing while avoiding both emotional suppression that created internal pressure and emotional amplification that prolonged emotional disturbance beyond its natural duration. The foundational emotional practice involved emotional flow meditation, allowing emotions to be experienced fully while maintaining the relaxed awareness that enabled emotions to move through consciousness naturally without becoming stuck in repetitive patterns or explosive releases that created additional emotional disturbance. This practice required learning to distinguish between experiencing emotions and being overwhelmed by them, maintaining compassionate observation of emotional content while avoiding the mental dramatization that often extended emotional upset far beyond its natural lifespan. Advanced emotional protocols addressed chronic emotional patterns, such as anxiety, depression, and anger, that had become habitual responses rather than natural emotional expressions, requiring systematic approaches that addressed underlying belief patterns, stress factors, and lifestyle elements that perpetuated emotional imbalances while supporting emotional intelligence development that enabled more skillful emotional responses to life circumstances. The immunity enhancement practices focused on supporting natural immune system function through lifestyle approaches that enhanced rather than overwhelmed immune responses while addressing stress factors that suppressed immune efficiency and created vulnerability to infectious diseases and autoimmune conditions. Wu Wei immunity work emphasized creating optimal conditions for natural immune function, rather than forcing immune responses through artificial stimulation that might create immune system confusion or overactivation. The foundational immunity practice involved immune system meditation, awareness practices that supported immune function through stress reduction, circulation enhancement, and nervous system balance that enabled optimal immune responses while avoiding chronic stress patterns that depleted immune resources and created susceptibility to health problems. This practice included breathing techniques that enhanced lymphatic circulation, gentle movement that supported immune cell distribution, and relaxation practices that enabled immune system recovery and optimization. The integration of condition-specific Wu Wei protocols with conventional medical treatment required understanding how natural healing approaches could complement rather than conflict with medical interventions, enabling practitioners to combine the best aspects of both approaches while avoiding treatment conflicts that might reduce the effectiveness of either natural or conventional healing methods. The manuscripts emphasize that Wu Wei healing enhanced medical treatment effectiveness by optimizing the internal conditions required for any healing intervention to achieve maximum benefit while minimizing side effects through improved natural healing capacity. Page 7. The Cultivation of Taoist Longevity. Chapter 7. Ancient Secrets of Effortless Life. Extension. The longevity practices preserved in Lao Tzu's manuscripts represented the culmination of his understanding that extended healthy lifespan resulted not from forced life extension techniques or aggressive anti-aging interventions, but from the natural consequence of living in harmony with Tao principles that supported optimal biological function, cellular regeneration, and energetic vitality. Throughout extended periods, when lifestyle choices consistently aligned with rather than worked against natural patterns that governed healthy aging, cellular renewal, and the maintenance of youthful vitality through the accumulated effects of daily practices that enhanced rather than depleted life force reserves. These longevity practices embodied the Wu Wei principle that effortless action created more sustainable results than forced effort. With gentle, consistent practices that supported natural regenerative processes proving more effective than intensive interventions that might provide temporary improvements while creating long-term stress that accelerated aging processes. The foundational principle underlying Tao longevity was Lao Tzu's recognition that aging was not merely an inevitable biological process, but often represented the accumulated effects of lifestyle choices, mental attitudes, and energetic patterns that either supported or interfered with natural regenerative capabilities that could maintain youthful function throughout extended lifespans when properly cultivated and supported through conscious cooperation with natural aging rhythms rather than resistance to natural changes that required adaptation rather than opposition. This understanding enabled practitioners to work with natural aging processes while maintaining optimal function, vitality, and health throughout extended lifespans that exceeded normal life expectancy through the cumulative benefits of consistent Tao practice. The energy conservation practices described in the manuscripts addressed what Lao Tzu identified as the primary cause of premature aging: the wasteful expenditure of life force through stress, emotional turmoil, excessive activity, and resistance to natural rhythms that depleted energetic reserves faster than they could be naturally replenished through rest, proper nutrition, and harmonious living patterns. Energy conservation involved learning to distinguish between essential activities that supported life goals and wasteful expenditures that drained vitality without providing corresponding benefits, enabling practitioners to maintain high energy levels throughout extended lifespans, through conscious allocation of energy resources according to priorities that supported rather than conflicted with long-term health and vitality. The foundational energy conservation practice involved what Lao Tzu called the reservoir meditation, daily periods of stillness and rest that allowed natural energy replenishment to occur without the constant drain created by mental activity, emotional reactivity, and physical tension that prevented optimal energy restoration during rest periods. This meditation required complete relaxation of body, mind, and emotions while maintaining gentle awareness of internal energy levels and circulation patterns, creating optimal conditions for natural energy restoration that gradually built substantial energy reserves that could support sustained vitality throughout extended lifespans. Advanced energy conservation techniques included lifestyle modifications that eliminated energy-wasting activities and relationships while enhancing energy-supporting practices and environments, stress management approaches that prevented energy depletion through chronic activation of stress responses, and time management strategies that allocated energy according to authentic priorities rather than external demands that might drain vitality without providing meaningful satisfaction or contribution to life goals. These techniques required developing sensitivity to energy levels and learning to make daily choices that supported rather than depleted energetic resources through conscious energy management. The cellular regeneration practices represented perhaps the most sophisticated aspect of Tao longevity, involving techniques that supported optimal cellular function and renewal through lifestyle approaches that enhanced natural regenerative processes while avoiding activities and exposures that accelerated cellular damage and aging through oxidative stress, inflammation, and other factors that interfered with natural cellular repair and renewal mechanisms. These practices worked at the cellular level to maintain youthful function throughout extended lifespans through the accumulated effects of daily choices that supported cellular health and regeneration. The foundational cellular practice involved cellular breathing meditation, breathing techniques that enhanced cellular oxygenation and circulation while supporting cellular detoxification and renewal through improved lymphatic flow and cellular waste elimination that prevented the accumulation of cellular damage that contributed to aging processes. This practice coordinated specific breathing patterns with visualization of cellular renewal and regeneration, creating optimal conditions for cellular healing and maintenance that supported sustained youthful cellular function throughout extended lifespans. Advanced cellular protocols included nutrition strategies that provided optimal cellular nutrition, while avoiding foods and substances that created cellular stress and damage, exercise approaches that stimulated cellular renewal without creating excessive cellular stress, and environmental modifications that minimized cellular damage from toxins, radiation, and other environmental factors that accelerated cellular aging when exposure exceeded the body's natural protective and repair capabilities. The mental longevity practices addressed Lao Tzu's understanding that mental patterns and attitudes significantly influenced aging processes through their effects on stress hormones, immune function, and cellular regeneration, with positive mental states supporting longevity, while negative mental patterns accelerated aging through chronic stress responses that depleted energy reserves and interfered with natural regenerative processes. Mental longevity involved cultivating mental attitudes and cognitive patterns that supported rather than interfered with optimal biological function throughout extended lifespans. The foundational mental practice involved timeless awareness meditation, consciousness practices that cultivated awareness of the present moment while releasing mental preoccupation with aging, death, and time-related anxieties that created stress and accelerated aging processes through chronic activation of fear responses that interfered with natural regenerative processes. This meditation enabled practitioners to experience consciousness beyond time-bound identity while maintaining full engagement with life activities, creating mental states that supported longevity through reduced stress and enhanced present-moment awareness. Advanced mental longevity techniques included cognitive approaches that maintained mental flexibility and learning capacity throughout extended lifespans, creative practices that stimulated neuroplasticity and mental renewal, and wisdom cultivation approaches that developed increasingly sophisticated understanding and perspective that enhanced life satisfaction and meaning throughout extended lifespans, preventing the mental stagnation that often contributed to premature aging through loss of purpose and intellectual stimulation. The emotional longevity practices focused on maintaining emotional vitality and resilience throughout extended lifespans through emotional intelligence development that enabled skillful responses to life challenges while maintaining emotional openness and capacity for joy, love, and wonder, that supported longevity through positive emotional states that enhanced immune function, cellular regeneration, and overall biological vitality. Emotional longevity involved neither emotional suppression nor emotional overwhelm, but rather emotional wisdom that supported sustained vitality throughout extended lifespans. The foundational emotional practice involved heart-opening meditation, practices that cultivated love, compassion, gratitude, and joy, while releasing emotional patterns such as resentment, fear, and anger that created stress and accelerated aging through chronic negative emotional states that interfered with optimal biological function. This meditation involved focusing awareness on the heart center, while generating positive emotions that supported longevity through their beneficial effects on cardiovascular function, immune responses, and cellular regeneration. The seasonal longevity practices recognized that optimal aging required adapting lifestyle approaches throughout different life stages while maintaining essential practices that supported longevity regardless of chronological age, enabling practitioners to navigate natural life transitions while maintaining vitality and function throughout extended lifespans. These practices involved understanding and working with natural aging rhythms rather than resisting inevitable changes, while maintaining the aspects of youthful function that could be preserved through appropriate practice and lifestyle choices. The integration of longevity practices with natural aging processes required what Lao Tzu called graceful aging wisdom, accepting natural changes while maintaining optimal function, embracing the wisdom and perspective that came with extended life experience while preserving the vitality and enthusiasm of youth, and finding meaning and purpose throughout extended lifespans that provided motivation for continued growth and contribution, rather than merely extending life without corresponding quality and satisfaction. The documented results of Tao longevity practices included historical accounts of practitioners who maintained exceptional health, vitality, and mental clarity throughout lifespans that significantly exceeded normal life expectancy, demonstrating that conscious cooperation with natural longevity processes could enable extended healthy lifespans that provided opportunities for continued growth, service, and contribution throughout years that might otherwise be characterized by decline and limitation. Page 8. Documented Healings and Case Studies. Chapter 8. Historical Testimonies of Wu Wei Medicine. The historical validation of Lao Tzu's Wu Wei healing methods was preserved through meticulous documentation maintained by generations of Taoist practitioners who recorded detailed case studies of healing outcomes achieved through effortless action techniques, providing compelling evidence that natural healing approaches based on cooperation with Tao principles could achieve remarkable therapeutic results that often exceeded outcomes produced through more aggressive interventions while creating lasting wellness that persisted long after initial healing work was completed. These case studies, spanning over 2 millennia of clinical observation and documented in the secret archives of various Taoist monasteries and healing centers, demonstrated consistent patterns of healing success achieved through patient application of Wu Wei principles that supported, rather than forced, natural healing processes. The case of Chen Wei-ming, a 45-year-old merchant who suffered from chronic digestive disorders that had resisted conventional treatments for over 8 years, illustrated the effectiveness of Wu Wei digestive healing approaches that addressed underlying stress patterns and lifestyle factors, rather than merely treating digestive symptoms through external interventions. Chen's condition included severe acid reflux, irregular bowel movements, chronic abdominal pain, and food sensitivities that severely limited his dietary choices and interfered with his business activities, requiring frequent visits to physicians who provided temporary symptom relief through medications that often created additional digestive disturbance while failing to address the underlying patterns that perpetuated his digestive dysfunction. Chen's Wu Wei healing protocol began with comprehensive assessment of his lifestyle patterns, stress levels, eating habits, and emotional responses that revealed significant connections between his digestive symptoms and chronic work-related stress, irregular eating patterns, and emotional suppression that activated sympathetic nervous system responses during meals and prevented optimal digestive function. His healing program focused on creating optimal conditions for natural digestive healing through stress reduction practices, mindful eating techniques, and lifestyle modifications that supported rather than interfered with natural digestive processes, while gradually eliminating foods and behaviors that contributed to digestive inflammation and dysfunction. The healing progression documented in Chen's case showed gradual but consistent improvement over a 6-month period, with initial improvements in stress levels and sleep quality occurring within the first month, followed by progressive reduction in digestive symptoms as natural digestive function was restored through consistent application of Wu Wei principles. By the end of the 6-month period, Chen's digestive function had normalized completely, enabling him to enjoy a wide variety of foods without symptoms while maintaining optimal digestive health through continued practice of the stress management and mindful eating techniques that had facilitated his initial healing. The case of Li Meihua, a 38-year-old woman who had suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome for over 5 years, demonstrated the effectiveness of Wu Wei energy restoration approaches that worked by removing obstacles to natural energy production rather than forcing energy through artificial stimulation that might provide temporary improvement while creating long-term depletion. Li's condition included profound exhaustion that persisted despite adequate sleep, cognitive difficulties that interfered with work performance, and exercise intolerance that prevented normal physical activities, significantly limiting her quality of life and creating emotional distress that further depleted her limited energy reserves. Li's Wu Wei healing approach focused on energy conservation and gradual restoration through lifestyle modifications that eliminated energy-draining activities while supporting natural energy restoration through optimal rest, gentle movement, stress reduction, and nutrition optimization that provided cellular energy support without overwhelming depleted systems. Her healing protocol included specific rest practices that enhanced energy restoration during sleep and quiet periods, breathing techniques that improved cellular oxygenation and energy production, and gentle movement practices that gradually rebuilt energy reserves without creating additional exhaustion through excessive activity. The documented progression of Li's recovery showed steady improvement in energy levels over an 8-month period, with initial improvements in sleep quality and morning energy occurring within the first 6 weeks, followed by gradual increases in stamina and cognitive function as natural energy production was restored through consistent Wu Wei practice. By the completion of her healing program, Li had recovered normal energy levels and was able to resume full work and recreational activities while maintaining optimal energy through continued application of the energy conservation and restoration practices that had facilitated her healing. The case of Zhang Daoming, a 52-year-old scholar who experienced chronic anxiety and panic attacks that had interfered with his academic work for over 3 years, illustrated the effectiveness of Wu Wei emotional healing approaches that addressed anxiety through natural nervous system regulation rather than symptom suppression that might provide temporary relief while preventing resolution of underlying anxiety patterns. Zhang's condition included frequent panic episodes, chronic worry, sleep disturbances, and physical symptoms including rapid heartbeat, digestive problems, and muscle tension that created additional anxiety about his health and further intensified his anxiety symptoms. Zhang's Wu Wei healing protocol addressed anxiety through nervous system rebalancing practices that activated parasympathetic responses while reducing chronic sympathetic nervous system activation that maintained anxiety patterns even when external stressors were minimal. His healing program included breathing practices that naturally activated relaxation responses, meditation techniques that reduced mental agitation and worry patterns, and lifestyle modifications that eliminated anxiety-triggering activities while supporting emotional stability through consistent daily practices that gradually retrained his nervous system toward natural calm and resilience. The healing progression documented in Zhang's case showed significant improvement in anxiety symptoms within the first 2 months of practice, with panic episodes becoming less frequent and intense as his nervous system learned to maintain natural balance through Wu Wei practices. After 6 months of consistent practice, Zhang's anxiety had resolved completely, enabling him to resume his scholarly work without interference from anxiety symptoms, while maintaining emotional stability through continued application of the nervous system regulation techniques that had facilitated his healing. The case of Wang Shufen, a 63-year-old woman who suffered from arthritis pain that had progressively worsened over 10 years, demonstrated the effectiveness of Wu Wei pain management approaches that addressed pain through circulation improvement and inflammation reduction rather than pain suppression that might provide temporary relief while failing to address underlying factors that perpetuated chronic pain patterns. Wang's condition included joint stiffness, chronic pain that interfered with daily activities, and progressive loss of mobility that threatened her independence and quality of life despite various conventional treatments that provided only temporary symptom relief. Wang's Wu Wei healing approach focused on circulation restoration and gentle movement practices that gradually improved joint function while reducing inflammation through stress reduction and dietary modifications that eliminated inflammatory triggers while supporting natural healing processes. Her healing protocol included gentle, flowing movements that improved joint mobility without creating additional strain, breathing practices that enhanced circulation and reduced pain perception, and lifestyle modifications that supported rather than interfered with natural joint healing and maintenance processes. The documented progression of Wang's recovery showed gradual but consistent improvement in pain levels and mobility over a 12-month period, with initial improvements in joint stiffness and morning pain occurring within the first 8 weeks, followed by progressive increases in mobility and activity tolerance as circulation was restored and inflammation reduced through consistent Wu Wei practice. By the completion of her healing program, Wang had regained normal joint function and pain-free movement while maintaining optimal joint health through continued application of the circulation and movement practices that had facilitated her healing. The case of Liu Tianyu, a 40-year-old man who experienced chronic insomnia that had persisted for over 6 years, illustrated the effectiveness of Wu Wei sleep restoration approaches that facilitated natural sleep through nervous system regulation and lifestyle modifications, rather than forced sleep induction that might provide unconsciousness without the restorative sleep quality required for optimal health and healing. Liu's condition included difficulty falling asleep, frequent awakening throughout the night, and non-restorative sleep that left him fatigued despite spending adequate time in bed, creating a cycle of sleep anxiety that further interfered with natural sleep processes. Liu's Wu Wei healing protocol addressed insomnia through comprehensive approaches that optimized natural sleep rhythms while eliminating factors that interfered with sleep quality, including stress reduction practices that calmed nervous system activation, evening routines that facilitated natural sleep onset, and lifestyle modifications that supported circadian rhythm regulation while removing activities and exposures that disrupted natural sleep patterns. His healing program emphasized creating optimal conditions for natural sleep, rather than forcing sleep through artificial means that might provide temporary unconsciousness without addressing underlying patterns that perpetuated insomnia. The healing progression documented in Liu's case showed progressive improvement in sleep quality over a 4-month period, with initial improvements in sleep onset time occurring within the first 3 weeks, followed by gradual increases in sleep depth and reduced awakening frequency as natural sleep rhythms were restored through consistent Wu Wei practice. By the completion of his healing program, Liu had achieved normal sleep patterns and wake refreshed, maintaining optimal sleep quality through continued application of the sleep hygiene and nervous system regulation practices that had facilitated his healing. These documented cases demonstrated consistent patterns of healing success, achieved through Wu Wei approaches that addressed root causes rather than superficial symptoms, created lasting wellness rather than temporary relief, and enhanced overall health and vitality rather than merely eliminating specific health problems, validating Lao Tzu's fundamental insight that natural healing processes achieved optimal results when supported rather than interfered with through forced interventions that might conflict with the body's innate healing wisdom. Page 9. Daily Integration and the Taoist Lifestyle. Chapter 9. Living the Way of Effortless Wellness. The ultimate expression of Lao Tzu's Wu Wei healing wisdom lay not in emergency applications during health crises, but in the systematic integration of Tao principles into daily life patterns that prevented disease while maintaining optimal health, vitality, and spiritual development throughout extended lifespans characterized by natural ease, harmonious relationships, and meaningful contribution, rather than the struggle, stress, and eventual breakdown that characterize lifestyles that worked against rather than with natural patterns governing human flourishing. The daily integration practices described in the final manuscript sections represented a complete lifestyle approach that transformed ordinary activities into opportunities for healing, growth, and spiritual development, while maintaining practical effectiveness in work, relationships, and worldly responsibilities that honored both transcendent wisdom and earthly obligations. The foundation of Wu Wei lifestyle integration began with what Lao Tzu called morning attunement, daily practices performed immediately upon awakening that aligned individual consciousness with Tao principles while preparing body, mind, and spirit for harmonious participation in daily activities without the stress, resistance, and energetic depletion that resulted from beginning each day without proper preparation and conscious intention. Morning attunement practices required only 15 to 20 minutes, but created beneficial effects that influenced the entire day's quality and effectiveness through establishing optimal energetic, mental, and emotional conditions that supported natural ease and flow throughout all subsequent activities and interactions. The morning attunement sequence began with gentle awakening practices that honored the transition from sleep consciousness to waking awareness without the jarring shock that activated stress responses and created tension that persisted throughout the day, interfering with optimal function and creating unnecessary energetic expenditure. These awakening practices included conscious breathing that gradually activated the nervous system, gentle stretching that awakened circulation and flexibility, and gratitude meditation that established positive emotional tone while connecting individual awareness with appreciation for life's countless gifts that were easily overlooked during busy daily routines focused on problems, goals, and external demands. Advanced morning practices included energy cultivation techniques that built substantial energy reserves for daily activities while maintaining connection with Tao consciousness that provided guidance, wisdom, and inner peace throughout challenging situations that might otherwise create stress, conflict, and energetic depletion. These practices involved circulation enhancement exercises that optimized energy flow throughout the body, intention setting that aligned daily activities with authentic priorities and values, and spiritual connection practices that maintained awareness of the deeper meaning and purpose that transformed ordinary activities into expressions of spiritual development and service to the greater whole. The integration of Wu Wei principles into work activities represented one of the most challenging and important applications of Tao lifestyle practices, requiring approaches that maintained efficiency and effectiveness while avoiding the stress, competition, and energetic depletion that characterized many contemporary work environments through the application of effortless action principles that enhanced rather than compromised professional performance. Wu Wei work practices involved finding natural rhythms and flow states that optimize productivity while maintaining inner peace, developing cooperative rather than competitive relationships with colleagues, and approaching professional challenges with the calm confidence that emerged from trust in natural problem-solving processes that operated through relaxed awareness rather than forced effort. The foundational work practice involved what Lao Tzu called effortless efficiency, approaches to professional tasks that achieved optimal results through minimal energy expenditure by working with rather than against natural timing, energy patterns, and problem-solving processes that operated most effectively when not forced or rushed through artificial urgency that created stress and reduced overall effectiveness. Effortless efficiency required learning to distinguish between essential activities that contributed meaningfully to professional goals and busy work that created the illusion of productivity while depleting energy without corresponding benefits. Enabling practitioners to focus energy on truly important activities while eliminating unnecessary effort that reduced overall effectiveness. Advanced work integration techniques included stress management approaches that maintained calm effectiveness during challenging professional situations, communication practices that reduced conflict while enhancing cooperation and mutual understanding, and time management strategies that honored natural energy rhythms while meeting professional obligations through conscious energy allocation rather than forcing productivity through willpower and stimulation that created long-term depletion and eventual burnout that compromised both health and professional effectiveness. The relationship applications of Wu Wei principles addressed the challenges of maintaining harmonious connections with family, friends, and community, while honoring individual authenticity and boundaries that prevented the emotional drain and conflict that often characterized relationships based on neediness, control, and expectation rather than mutual respect, acceptance, and support for each person's natural development and expression. Wu Wei relationships embodied the principle that love and harmony emerged through allowing rather than controlling, supporting rather than fixing, and accepting rather than judging others while maintaining healthy boundaries that prevented enabling dysfunction or sacrificing personal well-being for temporary relationship harmony. The foundational relationship practice involved loving non-interference, approaches to interpersonal interactions that offered support and caring while respecting others' autonomy and natural learning processes, avoiding the enabling that prevented growth and the controlling that created resistance and conflict. Loving non-interference required developing the wisdom to distinguish between helpful support and harmful interference, learning when to offer assistance and when to allow others to navigate challenges independently, and maintaining compassionate caring without taking responsibility for others' choices and consequences that they needed to experience for their own development and learning. Advanced relationship techniques included communication practices that expressed authentic feelings and needs while maintaining respect for others' perspectives and boundaries, conflict resolution approaches that addressed disagreements without creating enemies or suppressing important issues, and intimacy practices that deepened connection while preserving individual identity and autonomy that prevented the codependency and loss of self that often characterized relationships based on need, rather than love and mutual enhancement. The nutrition integration of Wu Wei principles involved developing eating patterns that provided optimal nourishment while maintaining digestive harmony and connection with natural food cycles that supported both individual health and environmental sustainability through conscious food choices that honored the interconnection between personal well-being and planetary health. Wu Wei nutrition emphasized natural, minimally processed foods, consumed in harmony with natural hunger and satiation signals, while avoiding the dietary extremism and complicated rules that created stress and interfered with natural nutritional wisdom that operated through bodily intelligence when not overridden by mental concepts and external dietary advice that might conflict with individual needs and natural preferences. The foundational nutrition practice involved mindful eating meditation, consuming meals in states of relaxed awareness that enhanced digestion, absorption, and satisfaction, while reducing overconsumption and food-related stress through conscious appreciation of flavors, textures, and nutritional qualities that transformed eating from unconscious habit into opportunities for nourishment, pleasure, and gratitude. Mindful eating required eliminating distractions during meals, chewing thoroughly while maintaining awareness of bodily responses to different foods, and eating until satisfied rather than full, while honoring natural appetite signals that indicated optimal nutritional intake for current needs and activities. The exercise integration of Wu Wei principles involved movement practices that enhanced strength, flexibility, and cardiovascular health, while maintaining the enjoyable, sustainable qualities that supported long-term commitment and prevented the exercise-related injuries and burnout that often resulted from forced fitness approaches based on no pain, no gain mentalities that worked against, rather than with natural movement patterns and energy rhythms. Wu Wei exercise emphasized finding movements that felt natural and enjoyable, while gradually building capacity through consistent practice rather than forcing rapid improvements that might create strain, injury, or exercise aversion that prevented long-term fitness development. Advanced movement practices included seasonal exercise variations that adapted to natural energy cycles throughout the year, with more vigorous activities during spring and summer, balanced by gentler, more restorative movements during autumn and winter that honored natural rhythms while maintaining year-round fitness and flexibility. These practices also included learning to recognize optimal exercise timing based on daily energy patterns, exercising when energy was naturally available rather than forcing workouts during low-energy periods that might create additional stress rather than the vitality enhancement that characterized properly timed physical activity. The stress management integration of Wu Wei principles provided practical approaches for maintaining inner peace and effectiveness during challenging life circumstances without suppressing natural stress responses that served important protective and adaptive functions when appropriately activated and released. Wu Wei stress management involved developing resilience through natural stress recovery practices while eliminating chronic stress patterns that depleted energy and interfered with optimal health, relationships, and professional effectiveness through the accumulated effects of unresolved tension and anxiety that prevented natural relaxation and restoration. The foundational stress practice involved stress flow meditation, allowing stress responses to occur naturally while maintaining conscious awareness that prevented stress from becoming stuck in repetitive anxiety patterns or suppressed in ways that created internal pressure and eventual explosion. Stress flow meditation required breathing deeply during stressful situations, while maintaining relaxed body posture and mental acceptance of whatever challenges needed to be faced, enabling natural stress responses to activate appropriate action while dissolving naturally once stressful situations were resolved, rather than persisting as chronic tension that interfered with subsequent relaxation and restoration. Advanced stress management techniques included lifestyle modifications that eliminated unnecessary stress sources while building resilience for unavoidable challenges, emotional processing practices that prevented stress accumulation through healthy expression and release of difficult emotions, and perspective practices that maintained awareness of larger contexts that reduced the perceived magnitude of daily stresses while maintaining appropriate responsiveness to genuine challenges that required attention and action. The sleep integration of Wu Wei principles involved creating evening routines and sleep environments that supported natural sleep rhythms while eliminating activities and exposures that interfered with sleep quality through overstimulation, anxiety, or physical discomfort that prevented the deep restorative sleep required for optimal healing, energy restoration, and mental clarity. Wu Wei's sleep practices worked with, rather than against, natural circadian rhythms, while creating optimal conditions for natural sleep onset and maintenance, without dependence on artificial sleep aids that might provide unconsciousness without genuine restoration. The foundational sleep practice involved sunset transition meditation, evening routines that gradually shifted consciousness from active daily engagement toward receptive rest states through activities that calmed the nervous system, released accumulated tension, and prepared both body and mind for restorative sleep. Sunset transition practices included gentle stretching that released physical tension, journaling that processed daily experiences and concerns, and gratitude reflection that created positive emotional closure for each day while preparing consciousness for peaceful rest and restoration. The seasonal lifestyle integration recognized that optimal health and well-being required adapting daily practices and activities to natural seasonal rhythms that influenced energy levels, nutritional needs, exercise capacity, and emotional patterns throughout annual cycles that required different approaches to maintain balance and vitality. Seasonal integration involved understanding and working with natural energy patterns rather than forcing consistent routines that might conflict with seasonal variations in optimal timing for different activities and practices. Spring integration practices focused on gentle energy awakening and new project initiation that honored natural growth cycles while avoiding premature overactivity that might exhaust reserves needed for sustained growth throughout the active season. Summer practices emphasized full activity expression, balanced by adequate cooling and rest that prevented overheating and exhaustion during maximum energy periods. Autumn integration involved gradual energy consolidation and preparation for winter rest while completing projects and harvesting lessons from the year's experiences. Winter practices honored natural dormancy and restoration needs, while maintaining gentle activity that preserved fitness and prevented depression during natural rest periods. The community integration of Wu Wei principles addressed the challenge of maintaining individual authenticity and spiritual practice while participating meaningfully in community activities and social responsibilities that might sometimes conflict with personal preferences or optimal individual routines, but served important functions in creating supportive social networks and contributing to collective well-being. Community integration required finding balance between individual needs and social obligations, while maintaining the flexibility and adaptability that enabled harmonious participation in group activities without sacrificing essential personal practices or authentic self-expression. The foundational community practice involved social Wu Wei, participating in community activities with the same effortless action principles that governed individual practices, contributing authentically while avoiding forced participation or social performance that created stress and depleted energy without providing meaningful connection or satisfaction. Social Wu Wei required learning to offer genuine contributions while maintaining personal boundaries, expressing authentic perspectives while respecting others' viewpoints, and participating in collective activities while preserving individual identity and autonomy. The integration of all Wu Wei lifestyle elements created what Lao Tzu called the effortless life, a way of living that supported optimal health, meaningful relationships, effective work, and spiritual development through daily practices that flowed naturally from understanding and cooperation with Tao principles, rather than forced discipline that required constant willpower and created internal resistance. The effortless life represented mastery of Wu Wei principles that enabled practitioners to navigate life's challenges with natural ease while maintaining vitality, purpose, and inner peace that enhanced both individual fulfillment and contribution to the collective well-being of all beings. The documented results of complete Wu Wei lifestyle integration included enhanced health and longevity, improved relationships and social harmony, increased professional effectiveness and satisfaction, and deepened spiritual understanding and inner peace that demonstrated the practical effectiveness of Lao Tzu's wisdom for creating lives characterized by natural ease, meaningful purpose, and sustained well-being that honored both individual authenticity and interconnection with the larger web of life that supported and sustained all existence through the infinite wisdom and compassion of the eternal Tao.